Spaceballs, a beloved movie, a beloved franchise. But where in the world are the toys for this? Before I jump into today's subject, a quick update on the channel. A lot of people are asking me for a decline and fall of MattyCollector.com, the online brand I ran at Mattel for about 10 years. And I'm going to get to that. I'm going to do a whole video about that, about what we were going to do, about what product was going to come out before the brand went away, kind of why it went away, and the inside scoop on why suddenly, after 10 years, this amazing brand that provided adult collector product just suddenly poofed and went away. And I'll look at all the product we were going to do, all the variants we were going to do, the line extensions, all sorts of stuff. But I will get to all of this, and I will answer sort of the, call it, universal question of why once we hit the next milestone for the channel, which basically just means 1,000 subscribers. So if you haven't subscribed yet, please do so. You'll help unlock this desired video and support this channel. All right. With that out of the way, let's get back into Spaceballs, the YouTube video. All right, so Spaceballs had a ton of content in it about merchandising. I mean, merchandising was a huge part of the plot. You even had Dark Helmet playing with action figures in a scene, yet we never saw those action figures on shelf. They never materialized. Now, I'm not the first YouTuber or person to talk about why there's been a lack of Spaceball toys and why the only way you can get them is by having fan custom-made toys. But I've been in the toy industry for over 20 years, and I've actually tried to make Spaceball toys. And I have a little bit of an inside scoop into kind of the exact reason why today in 2020 we still cannot get toys based on this property that came out over 30 years ago. We can't get Lego, we can't get action figures, we can't get giant spaceships and playsets. We can't even get pops. I mean, that feels like the low-hanging fruit, right? I mean, like, there's pops of everything except Savage Dragon. Psst, Funko, you hear that? We need Savage Dragon pops. I know, horrible plug for my favorite comic book. But there are, there's no Spaceballs toys. We don't even have vehicles. The zip, zero, zilch, even though it was a huge part of the actual plot of the film to have merchandise. The only stuff you can really find out there is, like, this ring is from Etsy. Again, it's a fan-made custom item. It's not for sale. It's not licensed. It's really just, kind of an S ring that I guess on Etsy you can get away with doing. Or, the same thing with Dark Helmet's Force ring. Again, this was from Etsy. So it's a handmade item, which for the most part, the licensing industry considers this a craft item, so they don't tend to come after people who do this because they're all handmade and you're not actually producing it. So that's kind of why this stuff is available on Etsy, and they don't get sued. There's even bootleg shirts out there. I mean, again, this is not a licensed t-shirt, and again, I'm not sure why licensing doesn't go after people who make these kind of things, but I think it's because the production runs are just so small and it's not worth it. But we're still not getting our talking yogurt. See, there I did it. I did the exact same thing they didn't want me to do, was mix up the properties. We don't have our yogurt doll. And to answer this question, we have to go back to the making of Spaceballs and what was happening in production and pre-production around this sci-fi spoof action-adventure comedy. So Mel Brooks made Spaceballs as an ode to Star Wars and Star Trek and all of the science fiction that he loved. He was a big, Mel Brooks is still with us, Baruch Hashem, but he's a huge movie fan, obviously, and his movies are spoofs of movies. So he wanted to make an ode to Star Wars and show his love for Star Wars, and that's why he approached George Lucas and wanted his blessing to make Spaceballs. And George Lucas's concern was that people were going to somehow look at Spaceballs and mix up seeing something like this, John Candy as Barf, and think it was this, Peter Mathau as Chewbacca. And Mel Brooks said, fine. I don't want to cause confusion. Sort of like I just did when I was talking about that Yoda doll a few minutes ago. So they shook hands. They made a handshake agreement that Mel Brooks could make the movie with George Lucas's approval, and Mel Brooks in return said, I won't make any merchandise, specifically toys, based on Spaceballs. And this handshake napkin agreement kept the rights to toys locked up for about 25 years. And it was untouchable because George Lucas was in charge of Lucasfilm, and he made a handshake deal with Mel Brooks, and they had a gentleman's agreement. But then George Lucas said goodbye to Star Wars. He decided he was going to retire, and as kind of the whole world knows, Star Wars was sold off to Disney, and Disney became the owner of Lucasfilm, which included Star Wars and Indiana Jones and Max and all those kind of properties. All right, so here's Disney now owning Star Wars, and they own everything. They have it kit and caboodle. Everything is boxed up, shipped to Disney. Everything, even the holiday special. But how do you box up a handshake deal? There is no paperwork about this handshake deal. It doesn't exist. Can you put a handshake deal in a box and send it along to Disney with everything else? I mean, they own Attack of the Clones outright, but how in the world do they own the handshake napkin deal that George Lucas made with Mel Brooks? When a big company eats up another company and absorbs them, they absorb all of their intellectual property, but the reality check is you can only own what's legally yours. Now, I tried to make Spaceball toys at several companies I worked for over the years. I thought it was just this hidden gem that would make an amazing product line, especially a toy line. At the end of the day, MGM owns Spaceballs outright. Mel Brooks doesn't even own it anymore. It's 100% owned by MGM. So if it's owned by MGM, why is everyone so scared of Disney? If Disney does not own Spaceballs and does not have any record of this handshake, well, it's because Disney owns everything else. Disney has Marvel and Disney has Star Wars. They have these mega giant blockbuster properties. I mean, besides all the ones that they've acquired over the past couple of years, they of course still have their classic catalog. So essentially, if you wanted to make Spaceballs toys, Spaceballs pops, Spaceballs action figures, whatever, well, you only have to deal with MGM. But the reason nobody's asking MGM is because, well, it's going to piss off Disney. And if you piss off Disney, then you're not going to get to make toys based on Star Wars and Marvel and Disney and Toy Story and Pixar and all that. So it's kind of like, would you make Spaceballs toys for that sort of tiny bit of collector audience that's out there, and in return never get to make toys based on any Disney property ever again? It's crazy, but that's kind of what happened. Disney does not own Spaceballs. They have no hold over it. MGM does, but if you make Spaceballs toys, then you kind of risk not getting to make Disney toys again. I know, it's a little crazy, but that's kind of what the situation is. All right, so that's kind of it in a nutshell, guys. If you're a small company and you're not interested in making Disney product, head over to MGM, ask for the license, make some Spaceballs toys. But subscribe to this channel. Unlock that decline and fall of Maddie Collector video with 1,000 subscribers. That would be awesome. I appreciate your support, and see you around the toy internet.